Brexit news latest, Amal Clooney quits UK government job in fury at Boris' controversial Brexit bill. The high-profile human rights lawyer, and wife of veteran Hollywood actor George Clooney, represented the government on promoting freedom of the press. On Friday she announced her resignation from the top role, writing to Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab to explain her reasons for standing down. In her resignation letter, she said, "It is lamentable for the UK to be speaking of its intention to violate an international treaty signed by the Prime Minister less than a year ago." She said she felt dismayed to learn the government intends to push ahead with the bill and had delayed resigning until she had met with Mr. Raab to discuss the proposed legal framework. She said he offered her no assurance that any change of position is imminent, which left her with no alternative but to resign. Boris Johnson's government has drafted the bill, which it acknowledges would violate its international legal obligations and undercut parts of the divorce deal it signed before Britain formally left the European Union in January. The Prime Minister has said the bill was essential to counter absurd threats from Brussels, but it has prompted resignations and the threat of the rebellion by lawmakers, which appears to have been averted after a compromise was reached. The top lawyer said she was disappointed to have to resign because "I have always been proud of the UK's reputation as a champion of the international legal order and of the culture of fair play for which it is known." She added, "However, very sadly, it has now become untenable for me, as Special Envoy, to urge other states to respect and enforce international obligations while the UK declares that it does not intend to do so itself. As the President of the Bar Council of England and Wales has affirmed, undermining the rule of law that this country is built on will fatally puncture people's faith in our justice system, and it threatens to embolden autocratic regimes that violate international law with devastating consequences all over the world." Mrs. Clooney said when she was offered the job of Special Envoy on Media Freedom, the role was described as one in which I would assist the UK in championing the right to a free press around the world. "Don't miss," she said, her role involved promoting action that governments could take to ensure that existing international obligations relating to media freedom are enforced in accordance with international law. She said she believes the UK has and can continue to play a key role in promoting the international legal order. The human rights lawyer went on, "In these circumstances I have been dismayed to learn that the government intends to pass legislation, the Internal Market Bill, which would, by the government's own admission, break international law if enacted. I was also concerned to note the position taken by the government that although it is an established principle of international law that a state is obliged to discharge its treaty obligations in good faith, the UK's Parliament is sovereign as a matter of domestic law and can pass legislation which is in breach of the UK's treaty obligations, although the government has suggested that the violation of international law would be specific and limited. It is lamentable for the UK to be speaking of its intention to violate an international treaty signed by the Prime Minister less than a year ago. Out of respect for the professional working relationship I have developed with you and your senior colleagues working on human rights, I deferred writing this letter until I had a chance to discuss this matter with you directly. But having now done so and received no assurance that any change of position is imminent, I have no alternative but to resign from my position." Mrs. Clooney's decision to quit follows the resignations of two other senior lawyers, the Advocate General for Scotland, Lord Keane, and the head of the government legal department, Sir Jonathan Jones. The string of resignations will pile pressure on Mr. Johnson, who has been facing growing calls to drop measures in the Internal Market Bill enabling ministers to override provisions in the withdrawal agreement relating to Northern Ireland. This week it emerged the Prime Minister had reached a deal with some Tory MPs unhappy with the bill. He agreed to amend the proposed legislation, giving lawmakers a vote before he could use the powers in it that would violate some aspects of international law.